Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's Jerry Miller. It's great to be with you on a chilly Thursday here in Charlottesville, Virginia. We are live on the I Love CVille Network across Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. Jim Harshaw, our guest, entrepreneur, father, podcast host. This gentleman is very dynamic, a Renaissance man, if you may. We're going to welcome him to the program in T-minus 45 seconds to spotlight his journey as a former All-American wrestler, as the youngest coach at the time in wrestling in college athletics, 26. He's been a TEDx speaker. I've watched his business grow firsthand, someone who undoubtedly understands how to leverage social and digital and mobile to build a power brand. T-minus 45 seconds for Jim. We are an advertising agency here at I Love CVille and VMV Brands on the first and second floors of the Macklin Building in downtown Charlottesville. We represent hundreds of clients. Two of our favorites, Interstate Pest and Service Companies, and Dr. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. We represent all aspects of those brands. Interstate started in 1969 with the first generation of the company, Mr. Robert Wells, who has since passed away. He used his personal truck and sweat equity and pay phones around Charlottesville to build a business. Today, the company has 4 generations of family working in it and almost 100 employees, a Commonwealth-wide working footprint. Truly a success story. Dr. Wagner, another one. Dr. Wagner started his business with himself and a couple of chiropractic assistants. Today, 6 chiropractors at Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine, physical therapy, sports medicine, chiropractic care. He is building a behemoth. In fact, the #1 chiropractic office from a production standpoint in the United States of America, right here in Charlottesville, Virginia. All right, Judah Wickhauer, you're the director. My friend, you and I have worked together for 7.5 years. Why don't we start with the studio cam and then go to the 2-shot and welcome Jim Harshaw to the program. Good afternoon, Jim.
Yeah, good afternoon, Jerry. Good to see you, man.
It's good to see you, too. The last time we were doing this was on television,
yes,
on NBC
on
29.
That's right.
I think it was the Cavalier Wrestling Club.
Yes.
Is that memory serve
That's right. It is exactly right.
You have wrestling and competition and being the best version of yourself in your blood. I would love to get to know what makes Jim Harshaw tick.
Man, I grew up a blue-collar kid in Western Pennsylvania, first-generation college, going to college, getting a college degree in my family. Wrestling's in my blood, and then I come to University of Virginia, and that place just opened the world up to me. So I'm a hodgepodge of tons of different experiences, and I think that's what qualifies me so well to coach, right? To be a personal performance coach is just, this blue-collar background, going to a great top school like the University of Virginia. I've been a business owner. I've been a leader. I've been in a lot of leadership roles as the youngest Division I head coach in the country, as you mentioned at the time, at Slippery Rock University, and multiple-time entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. Was a fundraiser at the University of Virginia in athletics for 7 years, major gift officer. So, man, a lot of those things make me tick. And then the number one thing that makes me tick is my family, wife and 4 kids. So, that's a little bit about me.
We have a lot in common. Let's talk West Virginia childhood. What was it like?
Virginia.
Oh, is it Virginia?
I grew up in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Yeah. Childhood, man. Dude, it was, a lot of splitting wood.
Yeah.
A lot of hunting.
Yeah.
A lot of snow.
Okay. Outdoors
and
guy.
a lot of wrestling. Outdoors guy, man.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I love Charlottesville so much is like it's so easy to get outdoors here. You got the mountains just a half an hour to the west, so we try to get up to the mountains. We like to get up to the mountains more than we do. We're spending our weekends at soccer games and baseball games and gymnastics events and whatnot with the kids these days.
You have 3 kids?
4.
4
kids
of
them.
Get
Yeah,
out.
we got
What's
a
the
pile.
age
We got a
range?
boatload. So 6 through 14.
Wow.
So the boys are 12 and 14, and the girls are 6 and 9. So yeah, it's a busy household at the Harshaw home.
Say, you got an army there. So how would you characterize childhood? Would you say good one, tough? How would you characterize?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just a lot of love,
Uh-huh.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to rest on our laurels, but it was a lot of work. like I said, blue collar and rural area, but yeah, I mean, just a great childhood. You know, my parents always wanted the best for us and gave us, you know, the opportunities just to improve ourselves. And you know, thankfully, I found the sport of wrestling, which really opened up doors for me. I was a hard worker in school, not so smart necessarily, but I worked hard enough to get good grades, and I was good enough of a wrestler to get into the University of Virginia. So, and that just that opened the whole world to me.
If you guys would like to relay some perspective to Jim, just put it in the chat box of the 12 Facebook pages.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Scott, is it Hadante?
Scott Hanty
is watching in Maryland right now.
Scott.
He says he comes from an awesome, awesome family.
Think
5 different states are watching the show. Ed Brown says hello. Dana Thiel says hello.
Yeah, Dana. Just worked out with her husband Bob this morning.
Give it a like and a share. Okay, talk to me about migrating to the University of Virginia.
Yeah, okay. So let me mention, so Dana Thiele, her husband Bob, I don't know if you got to get the F3 guys on here sometime. So F3 is this awesome workout organization. It's totally free, open to all men, and there's a bunch of us that work out all over the city of Charlottesville. Anyway, so shout out to Bob. I know Dana's out there watching. So anyway, your question, you asked me, sorry, was it about University of Virginia?
Yeah, so you go to arguably the #1 public university in the country as a talented wrestler. It's for those that are watching that don't know, very rigorous. I went there, just being a normal student. I can't even imagine doing it as an athlete and then also balancing academics.
Yeah.
What appealed to you about UVA?
So I should mention it was #1 when we went to school, and I think maybe since we graduated, maybe they kind of look at us on the alumni list. Maybe we got to bump them back a little bit if Jim and Jerry can go to school there. But yeah, so I was, I was generally a successful high school wrestler, but when I got to UVA, I was the low guy on the totem pole. Like everybody that I was, teammates with, they were all state champions or multiple time state place winners, and I was just kind of a guy who was above average. I never made it onto the podium at the state championships, and I thought to myself, man, I hope I can make the team. It'd be cool if I can actually wrestle and compete all 4 years, maybe break the starting lineup at some point. Redshirted that first year, got the snot kicked out of me at practice by Mike Krafchick, who was an All-American that year, and there were like 6 guys in my weight class, so I think I was number 6 out of 6. And then just worked my butt off, and then that's all I really knew how to do. And so the next year, I made the starting lineup. So now I'm the starter on the Division I college wrestling team, and I had a decent season there, but I had set my goals. I was like, man, if I'm the starter, I want to be an All-American, which is top 8 in America, and set my goal to be an All-American. But first, you have to qualify for the national championship. So I qualified for the national championships as a freshman, which was pretty exciting. But I got there and just bombed out, right? And junior year had the same goal. Man, I got to make top 8 All-American, right? Get to the national championships again, bomb out. Junior year, pretty much a repeat of the prior 2 years, and this goal of being an All-American just seemed so unattainable to me. At the end of my junior year, I remember going to the locker room, sitting there with my face buried in a towel, in tears, thinking like, why can't I do this? Like, what's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? Am I not smart enough? Am I not capable enough? Or maybe it's just not in the cards. Maybe just Jim doesn't have what it takes. And I went that whole off season, Jerry. I traveled to summer wrestling camps, like high school wrestling camps, and I was a camp counselor, and I just found as many people to train with as I could, right? So I go to all these different universities and Naval Academy and George Mason and Virginia's camp and on and on and on. I went to the Olympic Training Center and trained out there. And I was asking these Olympians and these elite performers, these elite athlete wrestlers, I was like, what am I missing, right? Do I got to get stronger? Do I got to get more flexible? What do I have to work on, right? And I went through that was my mission. So that my senior year, I had a shot at being an All-American. And I never found the answer. Like literally, I went into my senior year. I remember it was the night before the West Virginia Open, and I'm in the hotel room, and I'm like, well, crap. I never found it out. I never figured it out. What's missing? Like, what's missing for me to reach my full potential? And I literally gave up. I gave up on the outcome that night. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to compete as hard as I possibly can. The goal's still there. I'd love to be, but you know what? If I get there, if I get great. If I don't, I'm going to sleep at night knowing that I'm just giving my best, right? And I woke up the next morning. I lit the competition up. I went 5-0 and had this great day. And I was like, man, that was fun. And I continued to wrestle with no pressure the rest of the season. And I just compete. I focused on the process, not the outcome. And I had so much fun that season. And I focused on my diet. I focused on my, what time I went to bed. I focused on, if I'd watch film or not, making sure I broke down film with my opponents and weight training and rehabbing injuries. And I just focused on the process, knowing that that's what I can control. But I don't control the outcome. I control the things that lead to outcomes. And lo and behold, I get to the national championships, and I beat the 4th ranked wrestler. I beat several guys before that, and then I beat the 4th ranked wrestler in the country, and on the number 1 ranked team in the country, and I'm an All-American. And I came away from that experience thinking like, wow, I think I just discovered something new, but didn't realize that this is like the basis of performance psychology. Like this is the basis of sports psychology, is focus on the process, not the outcome. And, for those of us here in Charlottesville, we hear Tony Bennett talk about that. We saw them do that, right? When they lost in the first round a couple years ago, and then they go on and win the national championship. The process is the same. Yeah, you have to learn from your failures, but you have to focus on that process. And so that was, I learned a tremendous amount in the classroom. My experience at UVA as a student was phenomenal. I learned equally as much as a student athlete, in the wrestling room and on the wrestling mats and from my coaches, and going through the pain and suffering that it takes to be a student athlete at that level and to succeed at that level. And man, what a blessing that's been, and that's really the underpinning of my coaching philosophy now.
I can see why you were a hell of a coach. I literally have goosebumps.
Is it the ears? Is that what you saw?
I have a goosebumps from that story here. I like to talk about kind of like the trials and tribulations. And we get seduced a lot, especially in the entrepreneurship world, of this being this like sexy endeavor. We get to make our own schedules, your own boss. We'll leave that to a side.
Sure.
And we'll get to it. I want to hear about the hardships, and you've touched on it, the hardships of being an All-American. What the sacrifices that you had to make to get to that point.
Yeah.
Tangibly.
Yes. Yeah. So, we see the basketball and football teams. And we go, man, they travel and they have to go to a game on Saturday or a game on a Tuesday night or something like that in Miami, and then they fly home and they've got class the next day. Well, as a student athlete in a non-revenue sport, it's the same thing. Only you don't get the charter flight home. You're taking like the minivan, like the or the bus home, and you're getting home 2 or 3 or 5 hours later than even those athletes. And not to take anything away, obviously, it's just a little bit of a different experience. But it's hard, right? You're showing up, you're rolling back into your dorm room or your apartment at like 2 a.m, and you got an 8 o'clock class and you got a test, and you have to be there. You have to show up. University of Virginia is a place where there's accountability, and you actually have to go to class, and you have to take the test, and you have to take them on time. And so that was a huge lesson for me, a great experience. And I'll share this experience too. I lost. They've changed the weigh-in rules for those moms out there watching, and you don't want your kid to wrestle.
I was going to ask you
about
this
these weigh-in stuff.
Yeah.
It's like all the weigh-in rules have changed. So this is like back in my day kind of thing, right? So
this is the cut and weight topic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Back in my day, you could lose a lot of weight and then weigh in and then hydrate and eat food and go to bed and wake up the next day and then compete. And could recover. You can't do that anymore. You weigh in 1 hour before you wrestle. That's
really?
High school, college, and so all the weight cutting stuff that those nightmares are all gone, which is great. But my junior year, I lost. And I'm going to say this, and some people are kind of going to roll their eyes and probably click off this broadcast because they're going to think I'm lying. But those wrestlers out there know that this is possible and it's true. I lost 22 pounds in 2.5 days.
Get out.
It was just this. It was water, right? I just sucked the water weight out of my body. And my body grew. I was a late bloomer. I grew through college, and I was just in a weight class I couldn't make weight anymore. So lost the weight, stepped on the scale, hydrated, ate, drank all night long, and recovered for the next day. Well, I never really fully recovered. It was an awful, awful experience, worst experience of my life in terms of physically, going through that. And the next day, I remember we flew home. This was in Dallas. We flew home, and I actually I was about to tell my coach that, hey, I got to bump up a weight class because I can't make weight anymore. But unfortunately, the guy who was a weight class above me, we were both ranked like 15th in the country. So you had to have us both in the weight class, or had us have us both in the lineup. But they end up, literally the NCAA in the middle of the season for some other reasons, they changed the weigh-in rules. In the middle of the season, they added 7 pounds to every weight class, and I ended up staying in that weight class, and things worked out. But I tell you what. that was a trying experience, going through that use the term pain and suffering. And I'll reference another student athlete who I was good friends with, a guy named Mike Fisher. He was the NCAA soccer player, National Soccer Player of the Year when I was in school. And Mike said, if you're willing to go through some pain and suffering, you can be good at anything. If you're willing to go through enough pain and suffering, you can be good at anything. And that really resonated. That was like 2 years after that weight losing loss experience for myself. But that has just stuck with me. Like, if you're willing to go through enough pain and suffering, you can be good at anything, like anything you want, right? So, it's just an experience I carry with me as well.
How do you cut 22 pounds in that short amount of time?
You don't drink any water, right? You don't put any fluids in your body, and you just work out with sweatpants on and sweatshirt and hat and, time in the sauna. You can't even, legally, you're not even allowed to sit in saunas anymore to make weight for wrestling. I mean, that's a taboo. It's just a thing you're not allowed to do. It's an NCAA rule. But that's what you do. I mean, stationary bike. Think about this: stationary bike inside of a sauna, Jesus. And you've got sweatpants on, 2-3 layers of shirts on, probably 2 pairs of sweatpants, 2-3 layers of up here on top. You got your hat, your winter hat on, and you just sit there and you ride that thing, and you just ride. You ride until you can't ride anymore, and then you get off and you sit for a while, and you just have to keep your body moving. You just got to keep sweating. It's hell. Yeah, it was.
But that embodies what Fisher said to you.
Yeah, that's right. And it was a crucible experience for me, right? To know that I carry that with me, knowing that I can go through, do really, really hard things, and then flew home Sunday, Monday, class. Right. Nobody cares, Jim. Nobody cares what you did on Saturday, what you did on Friday to make weight. You just got to show up and go to class.
That is an amazing journey. When you get to the pinnacle and you become an All-American at the University of Virginia in wrestling, what's going through your mind then?
Oh, man. It's 15,000 people. The National Wrestling Championships are one of the top grossing revenue national championships of any NCAA sport. I think they're fifth, and fourth or fifth. And so it's a big venue, right? And for me, it was at Penn State University, at their Bryce Jordan Arena up there, and so that's close to home for me growing up in Pittsburgh. So my high school coaches were there, all my friends were there, of course my parents were there, family, my sisters, and it was just a fun. It was just this amazing experience for me. What I carry with me is that lesson of focus on the process, not the outcome. But man, in the moment, it was just it was the elation, right? It was hard to believe that moment that I'd visualized for so long had actually come to fruition, and I was there, and I was doing it, and I was living it. And yeah, I just remember walking off the mat. Literally, so I always visualize that moment as this, like run around the mat like this, hands in the air. But it was literally I was so exhausted. I had spent every ounce of energy to beat this kid. And I just laid there on the mat, and I just struggled to get up to one knee. And then I looked over at my coaches, and the referees had to confer about something at the end of the match, and I gave one of these, like, thumbs up or thumbs down. Like, did I win or did I lose? I couldn't even stand up and like, hey, what happened? It was just like thumbs up, thumbs down. They're like, you got it. And I got one, I got my hand raised, and then I jumped into my coach's arms, and mom and dad came storming down out of the upper deck, and cheering me on. So it was a great experience. But I will say this, let's say I don't get that last takedown, and the match goes into overtime and I lose. Does that change who I am? Right, and this gets back to kind of putting on my coaching hat here, performance coaching hat. Is like, would that failure have changed who I am? Gosh, I'd like to think that it wouldn't. Right, it may have, right, because I don't have that All-American plaque, which is who knows where it's at right now. I don't know, but it's like, nobody cares about that anymore. But what I carry with me is those experiences, right? But I really encourage people to not think of their failure as a reason why they can't achieve success at whatever it is, right? And I was lucky enough to get that last takedown, and then I got on the podium, and that was a cool thing. But that was, it's a moment that I reflect back on, in that regard.
So much to unpack there. How about this question? When you're an All-American in baseball, maybe football or basketball, the future is probably really, really bright from a professional standpoint or an earning standpoint.
Right.
What is the future for an All-American fourth-year UVA wrestler from that particular sport?
Yeah, I mean, I signed $1 million contract right after national championships, got my shoe deal, went on to fame and fortune. What it opened up, the doors that opened up for me were getting into coaching. I had offers to coach at the Naval Academy and some other University of Pennsylvania right off the gate. I had opportunities to jump into as an assistant wrestling coach. And I actually didn't do either one of those.
Interesting.
I didn't take any of those offers. I was friends with a guy named Tane Nix, Christian Nix, who was a 4-time NCAA champion soccer player at UVA. And he was living in Guatemala at the time at a meditation center. And he's emailing me like pictures. He's like, man, this place is crazy. It's cool. It's like I go on all these adventures, and it's on this like lake. It's this collapsed volcanic cauldron. The elevation of the surface of the lake is like 5,000 feet with just amazing, right? So I'm like, I'm going to go on an adventure. So I went home, painted houses for a few months, saved money living at mom and dad's, packed up a backpack, and I backpacked through Central America and just went on these grand adventures for 3 months. I had zero itinerary. I actually flew to Houston, took a bus to to Brownsville, Texas.
How much money did you have in your pocket?
I had about $3,000 saved up.
That is awesome.
So not a ton of money, but it's like it was enough. And I got so I was like, I was literally traveling on chicken buses. I was staying in hostels for like $5-6 a night. Just the time, the opportunity of a lifetime to do this, right? And it was great, So I took a cab across the border into Matamoros, Texas, Mexico, and it was game on, man. And I just hopped from town to town, village to village, all through Mexico, down through Guatemala. Met up with Tane Nix. Spent about 3 weeks at that meditation center, just hiking volcanoes, and actually did some scuba diving down there in that volcanic lake. And then headed off to Honduras and spent several weeks just traveling down through Honduras and Belize, and then kind of looped my way back up. And just experiences with shaman medicine men, and scuba diving in a volcanic cauldron, scuba diving out off of Honduras and at night, hiking into active volcanoes up into cloud forests, and just experience after experience. It was awesome.
What did you learn about yourself on this trip?
What did I learn about myself?
Because what are you, 22, 23?
Yeah, I'm 22 at that time. Yeah, and I really, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. You know what I realized? Wrestling didn't define me. Wrestling, because nobody cared, All-American wrestling. Who cares, right? Wrestling it had defined me for the last 17 years. And on this trip, no one cares who you are, what you did, what you're about. You're just on this adventure. And, when you're backpacking like that, there's a whole culture of these people. They're out there right now. Like as we sit here in Charlottesville doing this interview, there's this whole world, this whole culture of backpackers out there. You're never alone. Like I was rarely alone, right? I mean, even when I'm on like a chicken bus somewhere, you like stop at this little village and some, couple gringos jump on the bus and you're like, man, where are they from? And they're from, America or Canada or South Africa or Europe or wherever, right? And there's people, and they're all over the world doing this. And nobody cares what your background is, right? You're just there, you're in the moment, and just soaking up life as deeply and richly as you possibly can. And so, yeah, that's what I learned from that.
Pennsylvania is watching here. Susan Lynn Ennis. I'm so proud of
Miss
you.
Ennis.
Jim
My
Harshaw.
teacher. Yes.
Michelle Babuski.
Yeah.
Watching right now.
Yeah,
Jim,
Michelle,
you are
my
awesome.
goodness.
Such a stand-up guy.
Flashbacks.
Mark
My peeps.
Patiniski.
Yeah, Patinsky. He was a high school wrestling
Watching
teammate.
right now. Roger Voisinay, who's on the TEDx committee
That's
here in
right.
Charlottesville, is
Yeah.
watching. Clint Sponsler.
Yep.
Joyce
Pittsburgh
Smith.
F3. Yeah.
Give it a like, give it a share. I count 6 states watching the program here. Throw this to you. Wrestling did not define you. I struggle with this. So 11 years, started this business in 2008.
Yeah.
Been doing this for 11 years and change. 2 businesses, the advertising agency, own a lot of this building, real estate investment. I have struggled with entrepreneurship and being this business owner and bricks and brands defining who I am.
Yeah.
Then I met my wife, and then really I watched my wife deliver our son. Things really changed once our son came into the world. Gave me perspective. So where I'm going with this is, when you put so much sweat equity and time and effort and set so many goals to make something like being an All-American wrestler or trying to run a business in the black and grow a business constantly, it oftentimes you get blinders on and it clouds your judgment in some ways because you need that razor focus to be successful. But that razor focus, while it creates success on what you're focused upon, distracts you from everything else that's going on in life that maybe certainly matters more. Throw that entire topic to you.
That's the foundation of where my coaching program came from. So I was, the same way, right? We all deal with it, like in some way, shape, or form. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're an athlete, like you have this identity that's aligned with that, right? And then if you fail or you somehow lose that, it's like, who am I, right? And I experienced that. So my first business was a success, sold it. Second business, it wasn't. Right, I raised angel capital locally here, and
I remember both. The first business was Cavalier Window Cleaning.
That's Albemarle Window Cleaning.
Albemarle Window Cleaning.
Right.
You sold it to the guy who does Advantage Handyman.
That's right.
And he's trying to build a vertically integrated company
Yep.
in the home space where he offers a lot of services, and it's run by an admin office that is able to support all of it.
That's right. You got it, man.
The
Good
second
memory.
one, I think it was more of a tech online play.
That's right.
That it was geared to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, optimizing athletic programs. Was it from an efficiency or financial standpoint?
Both, mostly financial and marketing.
Okay.
Social media marketing.
I would love to hear these
communication.
too.
Yeah. So the first business was was home services, like window cleaning, power washing, gutter cleaning, that sort of thing. And had 10 employees, 3 crews on the road. I ran it from home. I did the customer interfacing whenever I had to, but I had an admin answering all the phones, and it was great. Wasn't my passion, but it was a fun business to build, and just learning through the school of hard knocks.
You were young.
Yeah, it was. I like to call it young. So young gets that number for young keeps getting older.
Sure, of course.
I'm 43 now, so I was young. I was 33 or so.
Okay.
30, or maybe even younger than that, 31. And that was great. Learning how to build a business from scratch, and then sold that. Started this other company, Riot Sports Marketing.
That's right.
And it had some traction, but not enough. Not enough to feed a growing family. So I had to pull the plug on it. And I realized as I was building that business, I had put everything into that, right? I had said no to my family and my relationships and my health and everything, And I got to a point where I was literally, as I was closing down the business, kind of looking for a job, saying to myself, how did I end up here? Failed business, not, healthy relationships really is the level that I should have. Wasn't, physically, I was probably the most unfit I'd ever been in my life at that point for an athlete, a former athlete. That was not a good feeling. And I was like, well, I had, 2 degrees from the #1 school in the country, All-American athlete, former Olympic hopeful, all these great things, all these, youngest Division I head coach in the country, and started my first business. That was a success. Everything I touch is supposed to be successful, right?
The Midas touch.
Yeah, I get the Midas touch, and here I am, broke and broken, and thinking how did I get here, and what was, I reflected on what was in place in my life when I was competing at the highest level, and what am I missing now? What are those pieces? And everybody says all these great lessons you learn from sports. And so how do I take those? What are those lessons first? And how do I take them and plug them into my life? And I did that. And it changed everything. It changed everything. I started focusing on my family. They became the #1 priority in my life. Actually, God became the #1 priority in my life, and my family right there with them. And got healthy again. Ran a half marathon. That's when I did this got selected to do this TEDx talk, and income tripled, and just changed everything in my life. And so I ended up starting. That was around the same time where I started this podcast called Success Through Failure, and interviewing New York Times bestselling authors and billionaire investors and astronauts and Navy SEALs. And I come to realize this framework, this system isn't a gym thing. It's this universal framework for living life well and performing at an elite level. But here's the difference. When you're an elite athlete, you can have that single-minded focus. And entrepreneurs, Steve Jobs had that single-minded focus. He mowed down his relationships, right? Denied a child that was his, right?
Wore the same clothes every day.
Wore the same clothes every day, right?
Yeah.
Single-minded focus, but that single-minded focus doesn't work in the real world. Now you got kids, you got a family, you got business, you want to be healthy and fit. Like, you've got a million things pulling at you. And so you have to choose which are the right things to focus on. You can't just choose one, because then you end up with, broken relationships, or your health goes to the toilet, like everything falls apart. So that's what I've done with this framework is create this framework of living. And that's the basis of my coaching is living this balanced life with clarity, with balance, with consistency, and doing the things that we know we need to do, not just in one area, like not just in our business, or not just in our health, or not just in our relationships, but in all of them, right? And living this balanced life. So I don't even remember where we started that question.
No, it's amazing.
Went off on it. So
it's amazing. Louise Long in Charlotte, North Carolina, welcome to the program.
Nice.
Bellamy Brown ran for city council, welcome to the program. Right. Dr. Downey, thank you for watching. Ryan Goodrich, we have Austin, Texas, and Miami, Florida currently watching the show. We'll thank some of the folks that are giving commentary. Roy Rudy says this is a great dude.
He's the man.
If you'd like to relay any perspective to Jim, just put it in the chat box here. Broke and broken.
Yeah.
Tell me about the headspace at that time.
Yeah.
Because the Jim I know
Yeah.
is like confident. And like the Jim I know, the energy comes into the room with him. You uplift people. You're a motivational guy. The Jim I know has vision. The Jim I know is a freaking winner. The Jim I know has the people around him, and you make the people around you better. I've known you not extremely well.
I like that guy.
10 years. Jim Harshaw I know is a badass. I mean that.
Appreciate that.
I mean that.
Yeah.
Broken.
That I used to be somebody.
I would say badass if it was your kids. It'd be a great dude or something
Right.
like that. Broken. Tell me about the mindset.
Yeah, I appreciate all those kind words, but the truth is, everybody has these moments. And
True.
that's my whole mission in the world, is to pull back the curtain on really successful people. And that's what I do on my podcast, is pull back the curtain and go, look, this person who is all those things that you just said, like positive, confident, successful, all these things. And you pull back the curtain, you go, oh, okay, so their life is actually real too. They're vulnerable. They struggle. They have fear. They have self-doubt. They have this little voice in their head that they have to battle with. And nobody sees that, right? We say, hey, how you doing? Good. How you doing? Good. Okay, well, so-and-so's fine, right? Well, most people are fine. If you ask them, how are they? Well, fine. Yeah, good. Well, they're struggling with something. Everybody is struggling with something. And in that moment, right now I'm struggling with things. But in that moment, it was especially clear what I was struggling with. It wasn't balanced in my life, in every area of my life. None of them were in a good place. And that was a hard place to be. But I'm so thankful for that experience, because that experience has led, first it's been just an education for me. And now I'm able to share that and help lift other people and carry other people through that, right? And I work with some pretty amazingly successful people. I just got off the phone before this with a New York Times bestselling author.
For your podcast?
Yeah, for coaching. And I'm talking to successful people. They all have their challenges, man. They all struggle. I've coached Olympians and former NFL players and neurosurgeons who are killing it, and you just go, man, they're challenges, right? Everybody has those challenges. So, and that was a particular. I have them now. I'll have them for the rest of my life. I know that, but that was a particularly tough moment.
Kevin Higgins has a question for you. Kevin, we will get to this question in a matter of moments. Before we do, I'm going to throw this to you.
North Carolina, I think.
How did having the Midas touch cloud your judgment in any capacity? What I mean by this, you are an All-American wrestler. You're the youngest Division I wrestling coach in NCAA at 26. You start a business, exit the business successfully. In a lot of ways, the dream for an entrepreneur is to exit successfully a business. You're launching your second business, a serial entrepreneur, and as you're launching your second business, how did having that success cloud your judgment by chance?
Yes, I think it did, especially in the business side of things. There, it was like, I started my last business, and it was hard, right? And I had to work my tail off and invest a lot to get it from $0 in revenue up to where it was when we sold it. And I was like, yeah, when I started this other company on the side, and yeah, I thought it was going to be easier.
Easy sailing?
Yeah, and it's like, I feel like most things are like that. It's almost like when you look back, and if you knew going in how hard it was going to be, a lot of times I'm speaking for myself, maybe it's like, man, I don't know if I would have gone into it.
You would have
done
known,
it, right? Had I actually known, but thank goodness that I did it, right? And even in my business now, I mean, I built my coaching business and podcast and speaking. I built that on the side. It was so hard. It took years to build to the point where it could be a full-time thing, a viable option for me. And would I have done that had I known it was going to be so hard? I don't know. I'd like to think so, but it's hard. Yeah. So did that cloud my judgment? Probably. Having gone through a lot of failures as a wrestler, I kind of knew that failure was always possible. Yeah. And I will share that pops one quote into my head from one of my podcast interviews with a world champion wrestler, a guy named Jaden Cox. He said, once I realized that failure was an option, it took this huge weight off my back and I could compete at my highest level.
Oh, tell me about that.
It's like failure. So he came to this realization that that we always say, failure's not an option. Well, actually it is, right? And when you realize, when you become okay with that and understand that, well, failure's an option, it doesn't mean I'm a bad person, doesn't mean, I have to lose my identity that we already talked about. It just means that's a real possibility here. I'm not planning on it, of course, but once you kind of embrace that and go, oh, okay, well, what if failure did happen? Well, I guess I would be okay. Right? Kind of Tim Ferriss has the fear setting experiment he talks about, right? And when you do that fear setting and you go and you evaluate, like, what is the worst case scenario? If I fail at this, am I going to lose my home and my family and my job and no one's going to love me anymore and I'm going to die homeless, penniless, and 20 pounds overweight, as Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live used to say. Well, no, it's like, usually worst case scenario is something far, far less than that, right? And so, so once you come to that realization that failure is an option, it allows you to take this pressure off and put it aside and go, I'm just gonna, I still have my goal, my clear goal, and I'm gonna work towards it, knowing that failure could happen, but man, I'm gonna put everything I have into it. And when you focus on that process and let go of that, have the outcome in mind, but let go of it. Stephen Covey said, start with the end in mind, right? You start with that end in mind, and then you focus on the process. You build the process, and that's what you focus on, and then hopefully you get there. But when you become okay with what could happen potentially, it allows you to be fully yourself and be free and authentic and put your full energy into something.
We have a couple questions coming in. This one's coming from Kevin Higgins, watches the show routinely, says, love this interview. I'm curious for your guests, what role does passion play in success? Is it something you can obtain, or does it just come naturally to people?
That's
a good question.
That's a great question. Yeah. And here's the thing. Everybody thinks that passion is just like you have a passion, right? And there's only one course for you in your life. It's your passion. You have to follow it. And if you don't follow it, then you're not living a great life. Well, it's like, no, that's not true. Like you can create passions, right? I have a friend who he's passionate about playing the game of bridge, and he's if not world class, he's one of the better players in the country in the United States, and he discovered that passion in college, right? Well, what if he didn't discover that? Is that his only path in life? Well, no, it's not. So passion plays a role, but you also have to give yourself the opportunity. Yeah, everybody has passions, right? We all have some kind of passion, but give yourself the chance to try other things, to try new things, to experiment, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm passionate about the line of work that I do, but maybe there's something, but I'm not fulfilled. Well, try a different line of work, try a different company, try a different, coming at it from a different angle. You can do all these sort of, it's called prototyping experiences. It's from a book called Designing Your Life. Can't remember the podcast episode number on top of my head, but I interviewed the authors of that book, Stanford design professors, and they talk about this. It's like these prototyping experiences where you go have coffee with somebody who's doing what you want to do, or something you think, I'm kind of interested in that. Maybe it could become a passion. That could become your life's passion. So you don't have just one passion. Go try something new. Go have coffee with somebody who's doing what you want to do. Go read a book on it. Go shadow somebody for a day or an hour or something like that, and go test and sample different experiences. And you might just find there are other passions out there for you. That said, to do hard things, yeah, it has to be connected with your goals, have to be connected with your values. In the real world nowadays, you see so many people setting goals based on not on their passion, not on what's in here, but they set goals based on what's parked in their neighbor's driveway, or what they see on social media, or what they see in the mass media, right? Not on what's here, right? What they care about, their core values, their principles inside, their passions, right? And when you set your goals and align with those, then, failure is an option, and that's quite all right, because it's not going to affect you. You're going to keep on going. Failure doesn't change what's important to you.
Tim Monk has a comment for you. Jerry, we're watching at our law firm in Nashville, Tennessee. We're on our lunch break. I love your show. I'm UVA class of 2010. I'm itching to get back to Charlottesville. Can you ask your guests if you have to, speaking of passion, if you have to make your profession something you're passionate about?
No, you don't. You don't. You can find, it's about finding meaning. Right? We so often want to find meaning in money, and in our profession, but that's not it.
Passion and meaning synonymous?
No, I don't think they're synonymous.
Okay.
Right? Passion is something you just love to do. Meaning is finding importance in value in the work that you do. Right? And you can there are so many stories of people who do work that you think is kind of not interesting work, but they find meaning in it. When you connect, if you're taking out the trash at some office building, like you can find meaning in that work by lifting people up and being positive and brightening their day and building relationships. And like at the end of the day, it's all about people. I mean, I'll be corny for a second and say it's all about love. Really, I mean, to me, that's the purpose of life is love. Doing what you love, but also just loving other people and serving other people and caring about other people. And when you lead your life like that, it's a meaningful life. And so, do you have to have an occupation that matches your passion? No, it's certainly pretty awesome. But you might have other core values. You might have other things that you want to do, and you may want to travel. Maybe traveling is your passion, right? Experiencing the world, but you have to have a job that allows you to do that, right? And maybe that's not your favorite job, but it allows you to do something that you're even more passionate about.
Entrepreneur Keith Smith and Lake Monticello just shared the show. Thank you, Keith, for doing that. Give it a like and a share on any of the 12 Facebook pages you're watching. If you'd like to relay perspective to Jim, please do so. Let's talk about today's business. So is this business 3 for you?
Business number 3, officially, yeah. Okay. Probably off the books, maybe 4 or 5, yeah.
Who, what, when, where, why of business number 3?
So who do I serve? Yep. What am I doing?
What's
that
the
sort of
business
thing.
About?
Yeah, so it's just JimHarshawJr.com. I'm going to be filing a DBA here soon as the Harshaw Group because I have some other folks that I'm working in bringing into the fold now. But it's personal performance coaching. It's helping people show up and be the best versions of themselves, giving them clarity, helping them be consistent on the things that they want to be consistent with, helping them find balance in their life and set meaningful goals. A lot of times it ends up focusing around professional goals and being their best selves at work and personal leadership and becoming the person, becoming who they, becoming who they want to be at work, making the amount of money that they want to make, but also help them keep their eye on the ball in the other areas of their life as well. So it's personal performance coaching. It's for people who want to get to the next level. They know there's more potential inside of them. They feel like they're leaving too much on the table. They don't know how to get to that next level, but they know that the clock is ticking, time is running out, and there's no time left to underperform in their life. So that's who I serve. And how do I serve them? I have an initial 8-week program that I take folks through to help us really build a foundation of success in their life. And then ongoing and additional coaching outside of that. I've run a bunch of different mastermind groups. I have some just amazing individuals in these mastermind groups. I'm consistently learning from them. It's such a cool thing to be a coach because, I remember when I was a wrestling coach, I got better as a wrestler, right? Well, when you're a personal coach, you get better as a person too. So it's so much fun and fulfilling for me to do this. I get so much benefit out of it. So it's coaching, it's speaking. So I do, motivational speaking, for lack of a better word. Companies are bringing me in for their annual retreats or keynotes at conferences, and I'm speaking. And then the podcast. So the Success Through Failure podcast, published every week, every Monday. I publish a new episode. I've done that for 227 weeks in a row, I think it is now. Yeah.
And it's no easy task.
No, man, it's a grind, if you want to call it that. But man,
we do this 5 days. The I Love CVille Show 5 days a week. Trying to turn this into a network. We do 10 shows a week here.
Yeah.
It is a freaking grind.
That's a lot.
And people, you know what? I'm going to throw this to you. People like the moniker now is influencer. People want to be like a YouTube celebrity or a social media influencer, and they want to be paid for content that they create on social and digital and mobile. I cannot emphasize this enough to everybody. I get this question all the time. I cannot emphasize enough to people how hard doing this is.
Yeah.
Creating content on a consistent basis. Throw that to you.
Yeah, man. It's like you said earlier, like the sexy life of an entrepreneur. I tell you, man, it's pretty awesome, being able to make my own schedule and all that. That's all. It's super fun. But it's work. It's work, man. I mean, there are things that you go, oh, this is going to take me 15 minutes to do this, whatever, update my website or something, create some piece of content. Like an hour later, you're still working on it, right? And then you got to send it to your
social channels.
Yeah, you got to send it out to your social channels, and you go, oh, well, now I got to get my virtual. I got virtual assistants all over the world actually now. I got to send it to him or her to get this thing done to it before it gets uploaded. And it's like, it's a lot, Yeah, it's a lot. And make no mistake, being successful, whatever it is you want to do, it's hard. It's hard. And there's no magic bullet. There's no way to be crushing it and be sitting on the beach sipping Mai Tais every day at the same time, right? It's work. It's effort. But man, it's fulfilling and rewarding if you get yourself into the right thing.
You talk about the process. Marcus Lemonis, I love The Prophet on CNBC. I love Marcus Lemonis' mindset. I would encourage anybody watching this program to check him out. Another one I would encourage anybody to watch, Gary Vee. Does a hell of a job with what he's doing. Talk about the process and what it means to you. Our favorite aspect, so we're an advertising agency, and we have a lot of similarities here. And I, as someone who runs an advertising agency, we sit a handful of meetings a day across from businesses that are telling us the good and the bad and ugly of their business. It's confessional for a business.
Yeah.
And I'm able to learn from what's working in one category and scale it to another one. Or I'm able to learn what's not functioning correctly in one industry and make sure my other clients in a completely different industry don't fall victim to that trap. So the process for me is human connection. The process for me is waking up every day and trying to be the best version of myself. The process for me is outworking my competition that's out there. Yeah. The process for me is trying to learn constantly, whether that's reading, listening, or watching people in the field that are doing it better than me. The process for me is my favorite part because I know if I put in the 70 hours a week, and I know if I'm here on the morning of Thanksgiving, literally, right there, that nobody else is, that's going to give me a leg up over everybody else. So I love that aspect. Dude, I love depositing the checks. I love watching the business grow 10% every year for 11 years. Okay, I love that. But for me, I love the work. I love the effort that it takes to it. For you, what's it about?
Yeah, and I'll say this, so we talk about this hard work. I call it, it's just a matter of semantics. It's like, it's hard work, but when it becomes inspired action, that's when you really are able to do hard things, right? And sort of to simplify that, give you an analogy, is, let's say, you want to go work out, right? Oh, I'm going to work out, right? But if you have something you're working out for, right? You want to, you want to run a half marathon, or you want to raise money for charity or something like that. Then, or you want to get healthy so you can live longer and be around for your kids or your grandkids. Like that becomes inspired action, right? When you put meaning behind it, right? So what we do looks like hard work from the outside looking in, but it's inspired action. And
I love that.
Yeah, and it's an important differentiation because digging ditches is hard work, right? Or there's the great analogy out there. The anecdote is about there's the bricklayer, right? And the bricklayer could just be laying bricks, which sucks, or building a cathedral, right? It's like, well, when you put meaning behind it, it becomes inspired action. So for me, it's like the process is, I found for me the process is connecting with people is the biggest thing. Just reaching out, connecting with people, and not doing it for selling people. I don't want to sell anything. I love when people buy. I don't want to sell anything. I just lead with love. And when you do that, when you lead with caring, you lead with authenticity, you lead with trying to lift people up, then the nerves or anxiety that goes into building a business or selling something is or promoting yourself as a personal brand like we do. It's like if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, it doesn't come across right. If you do it from here, then the world welcomes you.
That is beautiful. Beautiful. So much I want to unpack here. Jude, can we go a little longer?
I'm game.
Okay.
In, man.
We're 50 minutes in already. It's flying by.
Roll.
Kevin Higgins, Kevin, I love you, man. You're asking great questions. Please ask your guest, Jerry, what are the attributes you see consistently in highly successful and, capitalized and, happy people?
Yeah. Big difference there. It depends on how you define success, right? So, we say successful. It's like, well, they make a lot of money, right? They live in a big house and drive a fancy car. Well, that's sort of the traditional example of success. But so I know people who have all that and they're not happy. I also know people who have all that and they are happy. And it goes back to the 4-step process of understanding what is important to you. Like what's important, right? Those core values, identifying those core values, and then creating goals that align with those core values. And those people are happy. I love to use the example of Seth Goldman. So Seth was a guest on my podcast. He was the founder and CEO of Honest Tea. Sold that for $100 million to Coca-Cola. Remained as the CEO or chair of that for several years before he finally left that. And now he's the chair of Beyond Meat, which is now I think a publicly traded company, just booming company. And this guy, CEO of a massive company, he was still at Honest Tea when I talked to him. I had him on the podcast a couple of years ago. And this was someone who was successful and happy. And what I see from him is the most important thing in his life were relationships, people, his family first, right? He was physically fit. He was healthy. He paid attention to his own wellness. So he took care of himself, and he brought his passion to work, and he worked as hard as he possibly could, and so that's what I see when I see a happy person, a successful and happy person. I'll give another example. Kevin Donegan, Admiral Kevin Donegan. He was an admiral in the Navy, retired about a year ago after a long and just distinguished career. Had him on the podcast, and when I first interviewed him, he had just taken over command of the Navy's 5th Fleet. For any military folks out there, you know what this means. The world is sliced up into 6 different territories, and he was in charge of one of those, and that one included the Middle East. Wow. So there was multiple conflicts going on at the time while he was the commander. Thousands and thousands of men and ship and billions of dollars worth of money and ships and guns and everything else. And this guy made time for me, by the way. He was in Bahrain, had taken the job over a week earlier. And I'm like, hey, man, you don't have to do it, but we don't have to do the podcast because you got other things going on. He's like, nah, man, we'll do it. Amazing interview, episode 25 or something like that years ago. And but this guy, he talks about it. He talks about living a balanced life, right? It's not single-minded focus. It's not just his job. He had one of the biggest jobs in the world, right, that you could possibly have in terms of responsibility. But it wasn't that single-minded focus. He always made time to work out, and he always made time for his family. So that balance is what you have to strike, and you can't just live for one area of your life. You've got to build out the other areas of life that are not that you're not really fulfilling your potential in.
Charlie Bredeman says, this is great stuff, Jim. You're an absolute stud.
Jazz. Charlie the Spaniard Brennan. He was ranked like 7th in the world. That
right?
UFC, yeah, guy's big time. He's amazing. So check out Charlie, by the way.
Give it a like, give it a share, guys. We get this question all the time. This one's coming from Tim and Crozet. Jerry, I love the show. Please ask your guests, and please offer perspective as well, Jerry, of how I can start my podcasts for what I'm passionate about, which is transportation that does not involve vehicles, getting around without vehicles. So he wants to know how you start a podcast.
Yeah, man. Okay,
Just do it, right?
That was going to be my answer. Like, do it. So you got the topic. The topic is the hardest part a lot of times. But so do it. Like literally, that was my first episode. I remember you were probably the same way. It's like, open your computer, hit record, and go and start talking, right? And before then, you go, okay, wait a second. Before I do that, let me write out my script a little bit, come up with some notes. Do your first episode. So if you want some other sort of concrete things, if you're not ready to hit record today, then check out Pat Flynn. He has like a free course online. Just Google Pat Flynn free podcasting course or something like that. That'll give you like soup to nuts, everything you need to know. I use an ATR. What is this one? This is different than my mic, but it's like ATR 2100 microphone. It's like $50 on Amazon. You get that. You plug it into your computer. You can record on Audacity. You can record in GarageBand if you have a Mac. Record episode 1. That's how you start.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and then for figuring out how to get it on iTunes, Google how to put my podcast on iTunes. It's super easy.
Throw this to you: managing fear of doing something that's different, managing if this does not have success, and what is it going to look like to my following on social media. You don't know how many times I hear when we're working with early stage entrepreneurs. I'm talking about the type of entrepreneurs that are sitting across from that desk and literally are thinking, I have an idea for a business. This is what they often say. What if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
What if people on social media see that I started a business page and I updated my employment status, and then I have to change it because the business didn't have success?
Right. Yeah, that's a real thing.
That is a real thing.
And I want the viewers to think about this. As you go through the world, I want you to pay attention to how you feel about people whenever they are authentic, genuine, and vulnerable, and they share their failures, they share their setbacks and the things that they struggle with. I want you to pay attention to how you feel about them before and after. Your respect for somebody actually goes up. You actually think more highly and you have more trust in that person if they share that they struggle or they share that they fail. And this is, you hear about this. It's kind of a thing in the personal branding in the entrepreneur world that we live in is you have to be authentic and you have to share, because if you don't, then you're just like this person on a pedestal that they think, oh, everything's perfect for them. They won't get me. They don't understand me because they're over there and I'm down here. It's like, well, no, like we're all down here. And that's the reality of it. And so once you understand that, and I live in a world where, listen, I get to talk about failure every single week on my podcast. And so for me, I've internalized it at such a hardwired, deep level that failure is okay. And it's just a part of the process. But for everybody watching, it's not, you don't get to talk about it like I do every day. So failure, it hurts me too, but it hurts me a little less because I just go, oh, I didn't fail. I just actually, I just learned something really significant there, right? Happens all the time to me, and that is part of the process, that fear. And so when you sense fear, if you're about to do something, start a podcast or set up that Facebook business page, right? Or whatever that first step is, like if you sense fear, a little anxiety and fear around it, it is a sign. I challenge you to see that as a sign that you're moving towards what you're supposed to be doing. I really want you to examine that. It sounds like baloney BS, but I want you to really examine that feeling and say, I'm afraid to do that. And it might be so subconscious, you don't even know. You're like, man, I'm not starting that business page because I'm not even thinking about it because I'm too scared to even think about it. Well, like bring that from the below the surface up to the light of day and go, wait a second. I actually do want to start that business. It's been like sort of in the back of my head. I've never spoken about it out loud. I never journaled about it. I never did anything about it. Bring it to the surface and go, why? Oh, because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of being embarrassed. I'm afraid of failure. And go, okay, going back to the fear setting. what's the worst that can happen? Let's take the first step and understand that failure is an option, and failure is a necessary step on that path to success.
I love that. Dr. Scott Wagner's watching. He says, I absolutely love this
He's the
guy.
man.
And Jim Harshaw.
I was going to say, so you mentioned Scott Wagner, you mentioned Interstate Pest Control. I am a customer of both of those companies. So Scott Wagner is awesome. He's he's fixed me, gotten me from like not being able to literally get out from my car into his office and not standing up straight, literally just about crawling on my hands and knees, like bear crawling, and then I walk out of there upright. So Scott's the man, and I hired Interstate as well.
I have seen Dr. Wagner firsthand change people's lives.
Yeah.
I throw this to you on this topic. So, like you, a serial entrepreneur. 5 businesses for me.
Yeah, you're crazy.
First one, not good.
Yeah.
Took a lot of my personal savings, $32,000 invested into it. While I was a broadcaster for radio, TV, ESPN Radio, NBC 29, which you remember me then, and had the column in the newspaper and the Daily Progress. I was doing really well in my mid-20s. I had disposable income. Also thought I had the Midas touch, where everything I was going to touch was going to be successful. It clouded my judgment. That's why I asked you that question. Took $32,000 in 2008 of my own money and tried to launch
good timing too, probably
the worst time possible. Try to launch a luxury sunglass business on Ivy Road where the Papa John's is and that car wash. Thought I could manage it from afar, hire the right people, just manage it from afar, not be on site. That business went 15 months, and I kept putting more and more money into it, and I shut it down. Second business, I learned from that, exited. It was a website, had success, made good money. Charlottesville Restaurant Week, started that. Third business, sold it to the CVille Weekly, made good money. These 2 businesses, advertising agency, 11 years running, the real estate investment, own most of this building, good, doing well, okay? I have learned more from the 15 months of hemorrhaging money from that sunglass business failure than pretty much anything that I have done in life. Throw that topic.
Yeah, and it didn't stop you.
It did not stop
me.
Right,
that's the whole point.
It demoralized me. It depressed me for a
little
while. It hurt. It stung. It still stings.
Yeah, sure.
Still stings. But it did not determine who I was.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you when you talk to successful people like you or and you have all these businesses like. Yeah, pull back the curtain. Like there's real pain and suffering there that went into that, and failures and setbacks. And so, as for the viewers, like understand that's part of your journey too, right? That's part of my journey. That's part of Tony Horton, who P90X sold over $1 billion worth of fitness products. Had him on the podcast. He talks about his failures and his setbacks. I mean. On and on and on. It's part of it, right? Mark Devine, he's a Navy SEAL, started a business. He talked about it on the podcast episode where I interviewed him, and started a business, and the restaurant went under. Client of mine right now, he's a big-time restaurateur in the Northern Virginia area. He's got a bunch of successful venues. They were supposed to launch and open a new venue last week. Total bomb, total failure. Doors are still closed. They can't open right now. This is a guy who's created a lot of success, a lot of wealth, and it didn't go well for him. So he's like, this is normal, right? This is normal. And I challenge people to actually think about that and actually evaluate it, because most of the time we just brush it under the rug. We don't think about it because it's too painful to think about. So we just brush it under the rug. Don't talk to anybody about it. Most people don't have friends that they can talk to about that kind of thing. But when you work with a coach or become part of a mastermind group, you have this venue to actually bring that stuff, those hopes, those dreams, those desires, those pains, those failures, those setbacks, bring those up to the surface, evaluate them, and actually take action on them. Because to be honest, that's what's holding you back. Like whatever you fear, like your success is on the other side of it. Your success is on the other side of what you fear. And you had fear. I mean, it's not like you didn't fail and go, I don't have fear now. Well, no, you're like, well, I start the next thing. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed to succeed. It's like there's fear there, but you stepped into that fear. You walked into that fear. That is a prerequisite for success in anything.
I got this. This is a good text message. Jerry, please don't use my name. My husband is launching his business. He's 18 months in. Your guest recently was talking about his relationship suffering when his business was not working as he thought. This is where we are at as a couple and as a family. Any advice he can offer?
So first of all, I get it. I know. I understand. I understand that place. And I will say this. It all comes down to communication, right? And having honest relationships that are honest conversations with the emotion as best you can set aside. Sometimes that requires going to a counselor, a therapist, a marriage counselor, a marriage therapist.
And can we debunk the stigma of seeing a therapist?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done it, and it's like most of my clients have. Most of my podcast guests have a coach and or therapist or both. It's part of it, right? You want to be the best version of yourself? Do it. It's amazing. It's everybody needs a coach, and that coach can take the form of an executive coach, a performance coach, a life coach, a therapist, a counselor. Obviously, different things there and different expertises there, right? But yeah. I mean, consider it debunked. So, I will say this. So, if there's one secret to success, like we always talk about, what's the secret to success? It's hard work, it's networking, it's whatever, right? Dealing with failure. No, it's not. I've interviewed all these amazing people, hundreds of amazing people on my podcast, and I always hear, I always ask them to tell me like what habits they have, what do they credit for their success, and for the investor, it's never the investing. For the writer, it's never the writing. For the athlete, it's never the training. For those people, it's never the thing that you think it's going to be. It's always some version of journaling, seeing a coach, seeing a counselor, a therapist, meditating, prayer, going on a retreat. It's always something like it's getting off the treadmill of life. It's not doing. It's stopping, right? And I call it a productive pause. And the definition is this. It's a short period of focused reflection around specific questions that leads to clarity of action and peace of mind. So, ma'am, that to your question, that's what you're looking for is clarity of action and really peace of mind, right? And that comes from not just doing, not just going through the motions of your relationship or anything else in your life. It's hitting the pause button and asking a question like, for example, what's important now? And what's important now may not be creating an argument, right? What's important now might be, getting through the day, right? Or might be setting up a date night where you can go have a meaningful conversation. So what's important now? Another one is simply what's working or what's not working. I mean, these are productive pause questions that will give you clarity of action and peace of mind.
Jay Dominic says Jim Harshaw is the absolute best.
Jay.
Jeff Ford giving you some props right now.
Jeff, EAF.
I see Austin, Texas logging in as we speak. Let me follow up to this, what she just texted. And I'm going to do this from my personal perspective, okay? So I struggle, not we, honey. I struggle with the balance piece. I'm grinding 70 hours a week. We've taken one vacation in 11 years.
Yeah.
My wife and I went on a honeymoon. We came back pregnant.
Yeah.
From our
honeymoon. You know how that happens, right?
I know how that happens.
We got forums, so we know. Figured it out.
And I guess this is where I'm going with. I am like uber, almost unhealthy competitive. Super type A. What happens here on these floors determines what happens at the sustainability of home in some ways.
Sure.
The stuff that can go on the table, the college fund, all the above. It also impacts the relationship. And it impacts the relationship because our most valuable commodity, time, is not being spent with family and wife and our wonderful son. And I missed him take his first few steps. A lot of his first words. She's amazing, works actively in the business, is doing project and social media management. A lot of the content that's going up on social is being done from our home office while she has a laptop on one knee and our kid on the other knee. She's amazing. I'm missing the time with them. Monday through Friday, rarely see my son. Saturday and Sunday, I try to make up for it. Feel guilty constantly feel guilty. But this is what needs to happen to keep the business going the right way. This is the question I have for you. And
let me say, there's a lot of people watching right now shaking their heads going, me too. Me too. And they're waiting for the answer to this because this is a great question.
What is the sense of like vulnerability and almost like lost and like concern and like searching is constantly, I feel.
Yeah.
It's like a cloak.
Yeah. I interviewed I kind of don't want to throw him under the bus, so it is a podcast episode, and I'll elaborate a little bit on it. So I interviewed a very high-profile figure in the sports world, in the collegiate sports world, not known local, and I asked him, if you could talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you say? And it was like heartbreaking. He talked about that he would spend more time with his kids, and I've been there too, right? I told you about my story, right? And this is, I struggle with this still, and I think a lot of people do. And so, what's the answer, right? Well, how do you do that, right? So, I'll give you something concrete and tactical and actionable, and it is this. So we're coming up on the new year, right? January 1's right around the corner. I work with my clients on setting goals in every area of their life. It's relationships, self, health, and wealth. So relationships, self-explanatory. Self is like growth or impact or fun. Like growth is like, learning a new skill or taking a course. Impact is like volunteering or philanthropy. Fun is just what's fun, like hobbies. Health is sort of self-explanatory. It's not just physical health, but social, spiritual health and mental health, et cetera, psychological health. And then wealth is sort of career, financial. Relationships is number one for a reason. And it's so important to set goals in your relationships. And it's your relationship with your spouse, with your kids, with God, whatever's important to you, right? And so it's hard to set a goal in your relationship. Like, if you're like, okay, I want to run a marathon. That's my health goal, right? Well, it's like, well, how do you set a relationship goal around that? It's like, well, I want to be like, I want our relationship to be 50% better. Well, how do you measure that? You can't. You have to set a measurable goal. And so in that case, you set a process goal. And the process goal could be, for example, I will do at least one date night per month with my spouse. Or I will leave the office by 4 p.m. every Friday, or at least 3 Fridays a month, right? Like you can set these process goals. You can set these goals that you can actually do and follow through it. Like that's the process. And the process, we talk about the process for the out versus the outcome. But you have the outcomes like, well, I want to improve my relationship. I want to spend more time with my family. Well, what's the process that will get me there, right? And maybe it's sitting down at the beginning of the month with your spouse and saying, okay, what can we do this month to connect, right? What's a date night? What's an experience that we can do? Can we go, for us, it's like go camping or something like that. Like, what's the experience that would be meaningful so I can spend the time that I need and we can nurture our relationship? But it's got to be a concrete goal. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Step 4 of my program is follow through. And I'll give you a tactic here, too. It's like, New Year's resolutions are coming. Everybody's going to be setting New Year's resolutions. Do you believe in those? I believe in goals. I believe in goals that are set with actionable plan, deadlines, and here's the key piece, is like a systematic framework process that's in place for you to review them. Because know what most people do, Jerry? And this is like people will set these resolutions and then they maybe write them down, they put them up on a shelf, and like a week, month, 3 months later, they're like, what was it? I forget what my resolution was. I was going to work out more. Well, what does that mean, right? And they don't even, or a lot of people don't even remember. They don't remember. I've had people, they come to me and I'm like, well, what are your goals? Like, well, hold on, let me look them up. Hold on, I got them somewhere. It's like, no, like if they're a goal, like you should know, like read here right now. And that's most people. So I don't want to make fun of it because that's most people, right? But we didn't learn that in school. We didn't learn how to create this process. But here's the tactic behind it. If you implement just one or two, I'll give you two, is number one, write your goals down on, for example, like a Google Doc. I like Google Docs because I can access it from my phone or any computer in the world. Take that hyperlink, open your online calendar, your phone calendar, copy and paste that link into a recurring thing every month, or every like the first Monday of the month, your goals pop up in front of you and you have to review. You have to go down, you have to review your goals, edit them, update them, change the timeline, edit the action plan, identify what I call your micro goals. Like, what do I do? Okay, I want to, improve my relationship. Well, it's like, what's the micro goal? What do I do this month? In the next 30 days, what are the things that I'm committed to doing, right? Not just like in a year from now, it's going to be a great goal to achieve. Like, the next 30 days, how do I achieve that? So that's one tactic. And then the second one is this. I take my goals, actually my micro goals, and like 2 or 3 days a week, I write them down in a notebook. I write them down. So it takes with pen and paper, the old-fashioned way. And every time I do that, I always catch myself going, oh yeah. Like, and I open up my to-do list and I put a couple things on my to-do list because it reminds me. Schedule the date night with my wife. Sign up for that Spartan race or whatever the thing. Make sure you're making your 10 phone calls today, 10 outreaches to new people. Like, that's how you take goals, things that are important to us, our family, and put it down to like to-do list item today.
Nathan Jr. just shared the show in Campos Sales, Brazil.
Nice.
Brazil
Worldwide.
watching right now. You've crushed it. We are 75 minutes in. It's felt like 7.
Love it.
I'm going to wind down with these 2 questions. What is the advice that you would give 20-year-old Jim Harshaw?
Oh, man. I would say it would be all around failure. It'd be like, embrace your failures. Don't fear failure. Failure is a necessary step on the path to success. It took me a long time to come to that, to realize it, to understand it, and with some hindsight and perspective and just having lived through a lot of those things and kind of gone, oh, wait a second, I'm actually here now, and I'm actually having this success because not despite, but because of that failure, that struggle, that adversity, that setback. And that's the advice I would share.
How do you manage the feeling of vulnerability and uncertainty as an entrepreneur?
For me, it's about mindset. It's about creating faith in your process, and I go back to it again. I don't think, people might roll their eyes at this, but it's like love. Like, if you're serving people, if you really are serving people, right, through your business, I know you do, right, and through my business, I do too. Different businesses, we serve, and if you serve because you care, then that's because I get anxious, I get nervous, especially before I'm about to go on stage, right? If I start thinking about, ooh, don't screw up, ooh, this has to be a good talk, it's like, no, like, I have to wrestle with that and go put that aside and go, it's not about me, it's about them. Right? Lift these people up. They have challenges. They have struggles. And you're here to serve them. And whenever I come from that mindset, the anxiety and fear tends to melt away.
Mark Gray.
Yeah, Mark.
Says 20-year-old Jim was tough as heck.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it, man. Can you tell my kids that?
Where's he watching? Charleston, South Carolina?
Yeah, that's right. He's down there now. He's a Pittsburgh boy, wrestler.
Close on this. I'll take one more question from the audience here. Jerry, I've thoroughly loved this interview from start to finish. Ask your guests how you get more speaking engagements. How did he become a TEDx speaker as well?
Yeah, okay. So TEDx, that whole process started from failure. And this was the process. I stood up in front of an audience once, and when I was working at the University of Virginia, and I got so nervous, like visibly nervous. Literally, someone handed me a microphone to ask a question, and I was like, my heart started beating out of my chest, and I got super nervous, and I asked the question. It was like, oh my gosh, that was embarrassing. Like, you could see that I was nervous. Like, 200 people turned and looked at me when I got handed the microphone, and I was like, that is not cool, right? You've got to get over this, right? So I signed up for Toastmasters. Did that
What's
for
that?
Toastmasters is it's a national nonprofit where they have groups. There's like 2 or 3 in Charlottesville where you can sign up and you just practice public speaking in a small group, like 10, 15, 20 people. You meet, I think, weekly usually. My goal is I went about once a month. And you'd practice giving talks, and you would get feedback in this like safe environment. And there's this whole sort of curriculum they have. It's really valuable. And one day I'm driving to the office after I'm in Toastmasters for like 6 or 9 months and kind of brushing up on my speaking skills, getting more comfortable. And I hear an ad for a TEDx, the Charlottesville TEDx event. It's one of the, there's like 7,000 or 8,000 TEDx events in the world. Charlottesville's is in the top 1% of biggest ones.
I've heard that.
Yeah, it's huge, right? It's a big one. and really well done
We have
too.
two of the people that are on the board watching right now.
Yeah, Roger
and Kate. Is it Ennis watching? She's been on this program. She's watching now
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
yeah, Kate. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and she's one of the speaking coaches as
That's
well.
right, speaking coach.
Susan McCauley actually was my coach through that. And anyway, but so they held like open audition, basically an open mic night over at the Jefferson. There's like 500 people there, and they selected one person to be the community speaker. They have all these like amazing speakers from all around the country and even internationally, and I got selected by the audience, right? And so I got to speak at the main event a month later, and so that was the process. It was like stepping into fear, right? It was like I was afraid speaking, so I did something about it. I took action, signed up for something, which was uncomfortable to speak even at Toastmasters, and then I signed up for an opportunity to speak in front of 500 people, and then in front of 1,000 people, and terrifying. But people go, "Oh, Jim, you're such a great speaker." It's like, well. Yeah, success through failure. That's the process.
Last question for you. Allison Harshaw?
Yeah.
She says, I love you.
Ah, my sweet wife.
Let's
Love you, babe.
Allison Harshaw, what she means to you.
The world. Like she'll roll her eyes at this, and she's going to hate that you asked this question, Jerry. She keeps me honest. I mean, she's like... She has changed my mindset on everything in life in terms of like how to serve. This whole idea of like just love people. Like so much of that is rooted in what I've learned from her. So she's a licensed therapist and counselor, and she serves just kids going through amazingly hard things, and she loves it. She loves her job. She is one of these people that brings. She brings joy and love to the world, and I know she's rolling her eyes and she thinks this is so corny right now, but she told me about this one story of some kids that are where she works that they're going through just nightmarish things, and she loves those kids, like loves them, and it's like when you live with somebody like that, you can't help but like grow and be more like somebody like that, and so I'm so thankful for her in my life, and she's. Man, my kids would be so screwed up if it was just me raising them. So thanful for her as the mom.
Yeah, it's amazing. You crushed it, dude.
Love you, babe.
You were on fire.
This is fun, man. You're obviously good at this. So this is a blast.
I was just following your lead, dude.
It's good
Seriously.
stuff. You're good at this.
Jim, let's close with this. How can we follow and engage with your content moving forward?
Yeah, so JimHarshawJr.com is the website. You can find me on Twitter at Jim Harshaw, Instagram, Jim Harshaw Jr. Podcast is called Success Through Failure. If anybody wants to have an introductory coaching call, and this is a love thing. It's not a sales call. This is how I serve people. But at JimHarshawJr.com/apply, and you can apply for a free coaching call, 30-minute coaching call with me. And I love meeting people, and I love talking. I love serving, and it's how we become a better at my craft.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah,
Seriously.
likewise.
Guys, we close the show by letting you know first where you can find the content. We will archive the show in totality on ilovecville.com. That is the video and audio version. We will have this on a podcast. Anywhere you find a podcast, Apple Podcasts, my personal favorite. We'll syndicate today's show across what we call the I Love CVille Network, which is 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, the third largest Instagram in our community, an e-newsletter that goes out to 118,000 plus inboxes every morning at 11 a.m., and of course on the website and on anywhere you find your podcast. I close the program the same way every single day, and I ask everybody that's listening to please embody the golden rule. Treat the folks in your life how you want to be treated yourself. It's the golden rule. It is a straightforward concept, but it's a concept that I don't think is manifested as much as it should be. I think Charlottesville needs it. The Commonwealth needs it. We know the country needs the golden rule. My name is Jerry Miller. This is the I Love CVille Show. Enjoy your afternoon.
Well done, man.
You crushed it.
That was fun. That was fun, brother.
You crushed it.
Thanks for having me on. This is just a great opportunity.